Hello, welcome back to Fireside Chats with Ada Lovelace winners. Today we have a great opportunity to talk with the product designer winner, Anna Telesco. Congratulations. And Callie Thompson, the judge of this category. Today we will discuss designing products that empower people. Before we get started, I would love for each of you to introduce yourself and your wonderful work and just tell us a little of what inspired you to get into technology.
Anna, why don't you go first since you're our winner?
Hey, I'll kick us off. Well, first off, thank you so much for having me here. It's a great honor to be here and be awarded as the winner. So thank you first off. My name is Anna Telesco, and I am the lead UX designer at Lovelace. Lovelace is a company that is dedicated to helping people get what they earn within the construction industry, which is historically a long payment stream company, or not company, but industry just in general, and trying to help people get what they earn. So I have been doing this for about a decade now, really love the work that I do. I got inspired to get into tech and design just in general because I love the idea of design with function, design for a purpose, design that has constraints that I have to follow and business objectives that I have to meet. I've always been drawn to learning about psychology and how people think and why they make the decisions that they make. And that's the kind of design that I wanted to be a part of. And product design allows me to combine my love of learning about psychology with my love of problem solving and building things, and also being able to help people and knowing that the experiences that I create help empower other people in their lives, whether it's for work or otherwise, really feels great and is what gets me up in the morning. I also really love the tech industry because it moves very quickly compared to a lot of other industries. And I was really drawn to that speed. And in the startup world where I spend the majority of my time, decisions are made even faster. It's all about iterating quickly, trying to prove or disprove your assumptions as fast as possible, and working with a team that's really passionate in order to deliver all of these things. I love all of that. I love watching people benefit from the products that we build, and spending my days trying to figure out how to provide even more value to the people that we build these products for. So that's a little bit about me.
Well, that's awesome.
Really is.
Thank you for that, Anna. It's fun because I knew you were a good winner, but that cements it even more. So I'm Callie Thompson. I run user experience at Headspace. Headspace, for those of you who don't know, it's a meditation and mindfulness app, and it's increasingly expanding into mental health. And I got into tech. I went to design school to study social entrepreneurship and interaction design. And the reason that I kind of ended up on the more startup-y, kind of the Headspaces of the world side of tech was that I knew that technology was something that allowed you to scale a tool really quickly. It is a lot easier and a lot faster to write code that makes a tool, and then people can download it and everyone can use it. So it's a very quick kind of, mechanism of helping folks. So that was why I got into it. And yeah, I'm happy that that's what I get to do every day at Headspace.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Design with function. Thanks for those words, Anna. I think that kind of is going to be the main concept of our conversation for today. The right design can make our lives more productive and give us time back, which I personally can use. I really need some time back very badly. Time is valuable. And I think J.R.R. Tolkien said it best with this quote. All we have to decide is what to do with time that is given to us. And in many ways, giving back time and having more time empowers us to prioritize our self-care, such as being able to use the Headspace app to give back, and also to build more meaningful projects that could change the world. How have you seen design do this best? And also, what can designers do to increase the attention and time their users have when trying to get this design that helps us to do what we want to do and have the time to do those things that are more meaningful to us?
Yeah, love that. All right, well, I'm just gonna go first again.
Yes, do. That'd be great.
Yeah, so time and attention are our most precious resources. They're things that only come in a moment, and as soon as they're gone, that's it. You never get them back. And I can't speak for everybody, but I want to spend my time with the people that I care about the most, doing the things that bring me the most joy and making an impact. And things are like countless things are vying for our attention at any given moment. Like random things. My car needs a new registration sticker. I have to do my taxes. I have to like there's all of these different things that get in the way of doing the things that you really want to be spending your time on. And even as part of each of those decisions, there's hundreds of micro decisions and thoughts that you have to go through. Each one of those, like if my car needs maintenance and it like needs new tires, okay, well, what brand? Should I trust the mechanic to give me a good deal? Should I be shopping around? Like there's all of these things that come into play, right? That's like one example of things, but there's all these like tiny little moments. And I want to see how we can optimize not just my time, but everybody's time to be doing, to build the most meaningful lives that they can. So even if you're building a product, let's use TurboTax as a great example, because I feel like tons of people don't really want to be spending time doing their taxes. It's just kind of a necessary evil. Yeah. And so it's like, even if you're building a product that it's like a task that people don't necessarily want to do, how are you giving people time back to do the things that are meaningful to them? And that's what brings meaning into the product that you're building. So I can bring it to level set too, in that we are trying to get people paid for, you know, the work that they've done, that they've earned. And in the industry where, you know, it's so common to not get paid for 90 plus days within the industry and be fighting for some of that, like how can we make that process just a little bit easier, which is so that they can spend time working on things that they actively want to be doing. Like TurboTax is a great example of this too, because it's complicated. It's a step-by-step approach. They ask you super easy questions that you can really understand, and they map all of the fields back so you don't have to worry about any of that. And at the end of it, they give you this perfect form. They give you direct deposit, and they e-file everything for you, so you never have to look at any of it. And so that is the power of getting your time and attention back and being able to focus it in other ways. I think that the second part of your question was, what can designers do to increase the time and attention that their users have? Removing roadblocks, all of them, meeting people where they're at, make it so that they don't have to reach. Bring things to them as often as possible and ask them. You may not be your user. It depends on what product that you're using. And even if you are a user of what you're building, people are vary so much. So make sure that you're solving the right wants and needs by actually reaching out to them with all the things.
Yeah, I really appreciate, Anna, that you're saying that about reaching out to folks, because I come from a design research background, and especially like, you know, we all think like, oh yeah, it's very universal, like just make it simple. But, you know, when you're designing for different cultures or different languages or different age groups or different abilities, or, you know, designing for accessibility, there are so many things that, you know, you kind of, as a designer, like you have to get out of your horizons and really like observe people trying to use that tool to really find out like what they need, what's working for them, what isn't working for them, what preferences do they have. Like we're having a lot of conversations at Headspace around, you know, and this even speaks to this kind of like, how do you give people more time and attention back? We're having conversations around like, you know, in certain cultures, you know, there are ways where, yeah, you really like meditating by yourself, but maybe you actually would feel better if you were with others. Like there's the sense of like having kind of, you know, for lack of a better word, like companions. It's not really the right word.
Community.
What'd you say?
Community, maybe.
Yeah, but it's like one of my colleagues calls it collective healing. Like it's actually that it's more of like that understanding that sometimes there are things that we go through that are so big that we actually need each other to get through them. And I mean, obviously COVID, the last 2 years, we've had a little bit of a demo of that, but you know, there is that sort of sense of time and attention coming back. And I don't think that, at least for our teams at Headspace, I don't think we would have been really aware of that if we hadn't actually done research and really listened to people, you know, and actually seen like, yeah, what works for different kinds of people. And so I appreciate, I'm happy that you brought that part up. One more thing, sorry. One more thing that I think is so important that you started talking about earlier, Anna, is that there is this really interesting thing around decision fatigue. And it is like, you know, you brought up like your car registration. It's like there are so many micro decisions that we're having to make on a daily basis. And there is something really cool about a digital tool that sort of, takes all of those decisions. Like TurboTax is a perfect example, but like takes all of those and whittles it down into a consumer experience. It's like really dead simple and really easy, and even does a lot of that work for you, so that all you're doing is like answering a few things or choosing between two options and not like, 17. And so I just think, that's something we've certainly talked about a lot at Headspace. And that's why we recently redid the, what we call the Today tab. It's like your home screen to just be a list of recommended meditations so that there's less choice. It can be really overwhelming when people have to choose, and that ends up taking their time and their attention. So
I think you both touched on two really important things that could actually change many businesses, as well as help design more people-centric products. Anna stating that meeting people where they are. That's extremely important, that we start taking a further look at, exactly where people are at this moment and what resources and things they have available, so we can help engage and help them improve their lives in whatever the product or business that we're trying to do. As well as Callie saying, we need each other to get through the different things. So I think when you put both of those in together and we put that into technology, I think it could really change so much, and also is a big thing of what you guys do when you're working on your different product designs. Along with that, designing products that empower people has been the goal, as you both have pretty much stated. How can we ensure products are doing that? Are there any specific methods that are most important to you in your work that, that the audience should know, and as well as other product designers should know?
Yeah. So we've already touched on one of them a little bit, which is user interviews. That's like the biggest thing. Test your assumptions. Never stop testing your assumptions. You can't empower people if you don't know what their motivations, wants, dreams, desires, pain points are. Get to know them as intimately as possible. The closer you are to your users, the better informed your decisions are going to be. Test early, test often, even if you feel confident in your designs, maybe even especially when you feel confident in your designs, because maybe that's when you're like less likely to reach out to people. So that's my first thing, is like really know your user, do user interviews. Second, share your findings about your users with your team, with everyone. That information is so valuable, and all the people on your teams with different positions are going to come at things with different angles, and they're going to be thinking about things from different perspectives than maybe you are as the designer. So my developers, for instance, maybe they're going to hear something in one of these interviews or in some of the notes that I write up that's like, oh, I heard that speed was really important. So this is what we can do on the back end to ensure that we're getting this specific information to them faster. Or maybe as part of these interviews, we find out that there's a specific feature that we're lacking, or there's a feature that's not landing quite the way that we were expecting it to. And product managers and stakeholders and all of these different people can really jump in to make sure that we're able to adjust the way that we need to. And then thirdly, to like close the loop on that. Like communication is obviously a two-way street, right? Like I'm going to be gaining information from our users, and then I want to share that with the team, but then I also want to be actively listening to my team as well. And not just my product team, but the entire organization, my sales team, customer success, onboarding, training, everybody. Like they're all interacting with users constantly on a daily basis, maybe even more than I am. And they have so much information, and I need to tap them for this information. Like I want them to tell me what's going on with their customers so that I can close that loop with them and make sure that they're having as good of a experience as possible. But then it also builds this camaraderie within the entire team that, like, say I'm reaching out to a CSM and asking them how each of their accounts are going, and they tell me about something that they're struggling with, and I'm able to hop on the phone with that customer, or I'm able to resolve the problem that they have. Now suddenly they're going to be way more receptive to giving me feedback when things come up, because they see that I'm going to actively be able to help them through that. So it's like listening to the input that you can get and actively trying to get that input from users, sharing the information that you gain, but also being a very active listener to what's going on within the rest of the organization. And then also if we're talking about metrics, like measure with the user in mind. If your first and only metric is a sales number as a product team, you're probably not leading with the user first. And you're probably going to start making decisions within your product that are more geared towards meeting those specific business goals. And maybe the user is taking a bit more of a backseat than they otherwise would be. So those are really important to make sure that you're like tuning in to things specifically. So a better example might be then a sales number might be like a specific funnel of this is the value goal that they're trying to go through, and they're dropping off at each of these specific points and why. And we can start to identify those specific user points there. So yeah, I guess as an overarching like communicate with everybody as often as possible.
Yeah, I love that as a method, because I think that's something that people, you know, for the sake of like speed or efficiency of getting their work done, they forget to listen. And actually like talking to your sales folks, or, you know, talking to other people in the company and kind of gaining the insight that they have, especially if they're like, you know, customer facing roles, it's really huge, because then you have this kind of very honest, you know, yeah, here are the common problems that I'm hearing. And you can kind of, you know, as a designer, I feel like one of our roles is to kind of transmute problems into solutions. And so like you can be that listening ear and, you know, actually hear the kind of subtle nuances and what that problem state is that the customer is experiencing, and that they're, you know, communicating to your sales team. And then kind of, you know, I mean, the way that I love what designers are able to do, but just to be able to kind of take that and then, you know, turn it into something that is like a tool or a solution or a new, you know, a new offering, like, so, you know, in this way that like, otherwise you sort of like hear that problem and you go, oh, that's too bad. And then it ends there, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, no, actually designers can solve it. That's what's so wonderful.
It helps you prioritize it too. Like if I'm hearing the same thing from multiple people in different parts of the organization, now I know how valuable this specific change is over another one.
Yeah, exactly. That's actually, I'm happy you brought that up, because it is like, it, you know, per that question around like methods, it is something that I think people probably don't do enough of, like listening to your customer support teams, listening to your salespeople, listening to folks who are getting that, you know, kind of frequent feedback, and then being able to prioritize based on that and say like, yeah, this looks like a real area that we should explore. And like, you know, maybe it's not, you know, the coolest or like the sexiest idea, but it's like something that people really need. So like, let's actually help them. You know, they're literally asking for help in this area. And, you know, so let's make something. So I feel like what were you had other questions. I feel like
y'all actually answered them.
We did?
Yes. I love it.
Right,
so the next question is, you guys do so much to empower us, the consumers. What are things or designs, people or concepts that help empower you to continue to do this type of work and to stay engaged? And also, because you both are so people-centric when in building things, how does this all come together and you get empowered to get this work done for us?
I love to think that like great ideas come from everywhere. You just have to look for it. I love listening to everyone that's around me and trying to almost make my ideas like subservient to some of the other ones that come in. Because if I can listen to everyone else around me, like now I'm getting 100 times, you know, 100-fold different ideas that I might not have otherwise heard if I was listening to my own voice, right? And that's the whole goal of this, is to solve the problems. And the likelihood of us being able to solve the problem independently is so small. So it's like, it doesn't even matter where the ideas come from. It's just being able to tie into that and then build it out with each of my teams and everybody within the company.
Well, I want to add to that. I love that, Anna. I feel like, especially like given that this is the Ada Lovelace Awards, something that empowers me is other strong women design leaders. And I've thankfully, for the first time actually in my entire career, have a female design boss at Headspace, and she's fabulous. Leslie Witt, shout out to Leslie Witt. But there is a sense of empowerment that, you know, she actively empowers me, and it's really nice to have that. And I mean, I that's my approach to design leadership too. But I think like per your question, it's like, you know, what actually empowers us as designers, it's like knowing that I can, you know, I will be listened to at work, and I will be, you know, I will be heard. And, you know, because Anna, like you, I listen to everyone as well. And it's like, it's also cool to know that I have like a female boss who will listen to me. You know, it's like, it will go both ways. Like I can listen and she will also listen and encourage me to speak too. And there is something, I think, really special and important about that kind of like empowering each other atmosphere that I do think that like very diverse teams are good at, and very monoculture teams are not as good at. And so that kind of like psychological safety of empowering each other on our teams and empowering the people we work with is really, really important. And yeah, and it's not just my boss who does that. She does it, but I think our, you know, modeling myself after her and like the way our teams operate, we also do that. Like you can actually give more power to others through empowering them.
Yeah, I love that.
I think that's great.
Yeah, it makes me think of like Lovelace too. Like at Lovelace, we have a core value called Start with Love, and it's all about like putting people first. And I love that, like so that whole like empowerment part and working with people that you really, you know, empower you and that you want to empower them right back. It's like a cycle where like everybody's getting empowered, and so everyone's getting, you know, you rise by lifting others, like that whole concept, like it's legit. Like surround yourself with amazing people, mentors, teammates, friends. Find the people that motivate you, find the people that are breaking boundaries, that want to change the world one little detail at a time, and then make them your people and build it together.
I love that.
I love it.
That's great.
You both actually touched on one of our next questions, but before that, I want to say, Anna, I really appreciate you bringing up listening. Active listening is truly important, and it's really the only way to truly solve problems. I really appreciate you bringing it up. More people should talk about the importance of actually listening before doing. Especially when we're doing business. So I appreciate that. In this work as a product designer, your work on teams, team building, I'm pretty sure is extremely important for you guys, and working with your design lead that you both were talking about. Ensuring your team is strong, confident, and feeling their best is the only way to create an effective product that's inclusive of everyone's ideas, their perspectives, because you both brought up how inclusive groups are the pretty much the way to go. I'm sure you have to work with different teams in different ways, as well as agencies and designers. What's your approach to building and working within a team in design? What works best to for you guys when you're working in a team to build whatever product you're working on at that time?
Callie, do you want to take this one first? I feel like
I can. I mean, it's a good question, because it's like, I think it depends. It definitely depends on what product you're working on. But I think like, I'm happy that you reiterated the inclusive teams, because there is this kind of, I mean, and I've seen there's like lots of studies around it, but like when you have a more diverse team and you have, you know, people from different cultures, different languages, different ages, different backgrounds, different ideas, the ideas are more creative. Like that is a known, like scientifically studied fact, you know? And it's like, I think there is something about, for me, when I'm leading teams and when I'm looking at like building teams, I'm always really interested in like, do we have enough different viewpoints on this team so that we are going to have creative ideas? Like, because if you aren't really deliberate about cultivating like a culture where you know, it is a really diverse culture, but also it's one where if people feel really safe being themselves, like, you know, they not only are allowed to be different, but they're allowed to like express their viewpoint. And even if it's a dissenting one, they feel safe and confident and, you know, comfortable doing that. I think that that's like a really important piece that sometimes people miss around, you know, team building and leadership, is like how much of it, to Anna's point about listening, this is good. This will be like our theme of the whole thing, is listening. How much of it is listening and just like ensuring that people feel really comfortable talking, because otherwise, you know, and expressing their ideas and coming up with new ideas that are totally maybe even divergent from where like projects were going, but end up being a really important part of something. Yeah, I mean, I think that's where my head is usually at, is like sort of how can I as a leader ensure that everyone in this meeting, in this project, in this team feels really, really kind of rewarded and celebrated for being who they are, and they know that I have their back, and as their leader, like I have their back and I will support them and make sure that they feel like they can jump and take risks, and that I will be here as a safety net. And and that's kind of, so anyway, that's my approach. But I'd love to hear Anna's, our winner.
Callie, that is so beautiful. Like, you put it so wonderfully. I love that. That is exact, like, I couldn't have said it better myself. I loved the part, especially when you said, like, the opinions and the like dissenting opinions around things. Like, that is such a key thing. Like, even if you do have the diversity in the room, and people, if people don't feel comfortable using those voices, are you actually gaining the benefit of having those individuals in the room? Like, it's a scientifically proven fact now that like everyone is more creative when you have those differing opinions, and everyone feels safe using them. And yeah, making sure that everyone feels celebrated. I honestly don't have anything else to add. You just said it perfectly. Leave it at that.
Well, I am curious though, Anna, because like you do work with a lot of designers, and I would love to know, like, when you're in the weeds and you're making things, like how do you ensure that, that the designers that you're leading and that you're working with, like, are, like, it's like a very specific thing with designers where it's like, how do they feel like the work that they're doing is like meaningful and part of the team and part of the product? And, I would love to hear like just kind of how you see that.
Yeah, I think for me, I try to clue into people's like intrinsic motivations. Like, why are you doing, like, what parts of your job are you doing simply because you like to do that kind of work, because you get rewarded for doing that kind of work? And then how can I maximize the amount of time that you're spending doing those things that put you into that flow state? Like, that's when you're going to be your happiest, right? When you're working on that kind of work. So it's like, how can I put them into a position where they're going to be able to see that their contribution is unique to the team, and that we need them specifically, that they're like, there's a reason that they're there, right? Like, there's a reason why we're here, for their specific skill set, and to put them on this task. And how can we help them shine and really know that they're a puzzle piece, part of this like puzzle that is the company, or that is the project that we're working on? So how can I tap into their intrinsic motivations, and what it is that makes them happy and every day? Like, do they love solving problems? Like, do they just love the chase of like solving problems? Do they love connecting with people? Like, what is it that gets them going? And then allow them to do that as much as they can. And then also like humility of like, leadership does not mean that you have all of the answers. Like, leadership literally just means like helping everybody find the answers together. So like, be the first person to admit when you don't know something, or if you make a mistake, like that. Those kinds of things are going to create that safety of like keeping everybody in this space of feeling like they can contribute, and being able to bring forward those designs that are, I guess, designs or ideas that might be a little bit different from what people were expecting. Because sometimes that's exactly what you need for something to be successful. So yeah, tapping into their intrinsic motivations, like what gets them really going, and then just trying to remove all of those roadblocks, just like you had said.
I really appreciate you both. I appreciate the fact that you both are so intentional in how you think about doing design, that I just want to be a part and buy any products that you both create at this point. So
thank you. You're so nice.
So I have just one more question for you guys. What is the best advice you can give others looking to get into technology?
find out what motivates you. Like, what is it that you enjoy doing just for the sake of doing it, whether it's tech or otherwise, and then do that. And then when you figure out why it is that you like doing that, like dig deeper. Like if your service level answer is like, I enjoy coding. Okay, why do you enjoy coding? Do you enjoy coding because of the problem solving? Do you like the structure of it? Like you want to be responsible for that structure? Like what's the why behind it? Like that's going to tell you a lot about yourself and what kind of positions you want to actually take. And then I think another part of that too is like removing all expectations for what you think your career should look like. I think that our culture really tries to convince us that our career that it's a ladder that we're supposed to climb, and that like you've only succeeded once you've like made it to the top, and like leadership is like what you're supposed to be going for. If you're if you're not a VP at a company, you haven't been successful. But that is just so wrong. And I think that so many people end up taking positions that they don't truly want simply because that's what they believe that they're supposed to be doing next. Everybody has different responsibilities within the system, and it's like, which part do you want to contribute to this whole like ecosystem of people that are, contributing to this bigger goal? But like always follow what motivates you. And like if you have that why, like we were talking about, like why you're doing it, like use that to inform the decisions on like what positions you want to be taking next. Like your career isn't a ladder, it's an adventure. And like you get to choose every single step that you go through. And if at any time you're like unsure if you should take a specific, a certain position or not, or take on a new project or make a change or any of these kinds of decisions, just always go back to that. And also your motivations can change too. Like what got you into one place doesn't mean that you're always going to stay there. Like we're supposed to be growing and constantly changing. And so once you learn certain things, you might see that you want to do completely different things once you get to a certain point in your career too. So anyways, your career is an adventure. It's not a ladder. Do the things that make you happy at the end of the day. And like, how is it that you want to contribute to the greater goal? Like that's our whole thing, is that working together and as teams is going to get us there faster than we'd be able to if we didn't be able to do it ourselves at all. And so how do you want to contribute to that team? I think that's for me.
I love that. I don't want to say anything else. I think that was amazing. I mean, it's interesting too, because like when we talk about like tech as a category, it's so broad now. I mean, there's so many jobs within tech, and they run the gamut. Like, they're not all product design roles. There's just, I mean, well, I know, the Ada Lovelace Awards, you have lots of other categories, but it's like, I think, I guess advice for me, it's in the same vein as what you're talking about, Anna, around like your why and your motivation. But it's like, I find it really valuable for people to connect with topics that they're interested in, and areas of the world or areas of society or areas of the human experience that you want to improve. And whatever those are, then like, yes, if there is a company that is making things in that space, run for it. Like that was why I landed at Headspace, because I was like, this is, I love this. Like, of course, I want to contribute to this. And, and other roles that I had previously were also around, what can I do to help in like the aging in place space, and, how can I help with healthcare, and, but I think there's something about like really, at this point, there's now like an app for literally everything, right? So like if you're like, I love food, and you're like, but I also want to work in tech, it's like, good, you can work at a food app. There are so many.
Right.
We've got you, you'll be fine. So I think it's also like, what kind of, doing a little soul searching around, like what topics do you love, and like what aspects of our like wild, messy world do you want to be part of building? And then like, if, there definitely is a startup somewhere that's working on that. So, join them. So that's my advice.
Yes, 100%. I love it's totally it. Yeah, I love that. Like the fact that you could get, I guess, intrinsic motivation from like the different industries too. Like you see something that you really want to actively change. Mm-hmm. I had another one too, that I think is more geared towards like specifically women. And I think that like how to be successful in the industry too is advocating for yourself. Like we talked about it earlier in the call, like women are notoriously underrepresented in countless different industries. Like STEM fields are no different. You know, and as we talked about, like studies show that gender and cultural diversification benefits companies in a big way. It simply helps them reach their goals more effectively. So advocate for yourself because you believe in yourself, because you believe that it's what's best for the company, because it's what's best for your customers, for your teams, because it actually is. And no one else is going to advocate for you. You have to pave the way for others to believe in you, by fully believing in yourself and your abilities and what you bring to the table. So know what you want, know your worth in the industry, your worth to your team. Take specific inventory of all the positive impacts that you make within your company and all the impacts that you're going to make in the future months too. And bring that, like, own it. I think that like women sometimes, you know, we want to build this like sense of community where everybody feels safe. And I'm making so many generalizations, obviously, like women are totally different in all of the things, but I think that would be something so beautiful about a woman just feeling so strong and powerful in what she brings to the table and being able to advocate for that in any industry that she comes into. So yes, obviously, like intrinsic motivation and like finding the different places in the world that you want to contribute to, but also like once you find it and you know that you're good at it, like own it, like really own that.
I love that. And also like the way, I'm sure you both have read articles about this, but like how when men see a job description, if they meet 50% of the requirements, they're like, I'm qualified. And women, it's usually 110% of the requirements. And then they think, okay, I could apply for this. So I think that's also like important advice for women getting into tech, to like recognize like go to 50% and that's okay. Like,
right.
You know, that's enough. And then go for it. So.
Transferable skills. We all have them. It's there. You probably qualify for everything.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you both so much for having this conversation with me today. And congratulations once again, Anna. You truly are well deserving of the Product Designer Award, and we really appreciate you. And thank you so much, Callie, for taking time to judge this category.
I was happy to. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for having me too. It's an absolute honor to be here.